I want to go into the pro-abortion issues, Roe versus Wade, anti-abortion issues, and what's happening with all of this. Because even beyond this, it is displaying, I think, a lot of the hypocrisy within our legal system, something we were just discussing. Let me show you, first of all, Fox News. It says here, folks, pro-abortion groups target churches for Mother's Day protests. Right? Now, let me read this and I'll give some comparisons. It says here, pro-abortion activists are targeting Catholic churches for protests on Mother's Day, with some citing the Roman Catholic faith on multiple justices who reportedly at one point supported the leaked draft opinion striking down Roe v. Wade. Here's a quote. It says, whether you're this is from the organization organizing these protests, whether you're a Catholic, a for choice, ex-Catholic, or other of no faith, recognize that 6 extremist Catholics set out to overturn Roe. The pro-abortion organization group Ruth Sent Us, i.e. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who the dead justice, who really created a lot of these policies in the first place, or helped create them. They posted this on Twitter with a video of activists appearing to disrupt a church service. And they say, stand at or in a local Catholic church Sunday, May 8th. Now, just to compare this, what would happen if any of us here were to, say, target an individual? Say there's a public policy. If you or anyone, you, me, or any one of us were to, for example, call out that person's religion and then go and disrupt their religious services as a form of protest, organizations that had nothing to do with these individuals. If, for example, Ilhan Omar, representative, were to enact a policy and then rather than criticize her or her policy, people went to mosques, because she's Muslim, and protested at mosques, what do you think would happen? The Justice Department would step in and they'd say that's discrimination. You'd have the media ranting all over the place, saying discrimination, radicalism, racism. Why are they not saying that on this side? It's because we have a two-faced legal system, a legal system that does not actually represent the narratives it claims to represent. This is actual discrimination. This is actual religious discrimination, actual bigotry, singling out an entire group of people based on their faith who have nothing to do with this policy in many cases, singling out individuals of a certain faith and then targeting their faith rather than them, right? This would be called radicalism. This would be called racism. This would be called extremism under any other discussion. This is an example clearly of a two-faced legal system, one that does no longer has the blind justice. You have a legal system that persecutes people on one side and allows for crimes on the other. When you get to it, when you enact a legal system that does that, you no longer have rule of law. You have tyranny. You have a tyrannical system that's meant to suppress one group of people while giving free rein to another, right? Two classes of people. That is what this represents. Let me show you something else. There are veiled threats right now, death threats against Supreme Court justices. And let me show you this. This is from Twitter, and I have to show you a screenshot because the individual deleted the original tweets. All right, so these are tweets that are making some rounds. This is from Simon Gwynn, and I have to show you a screenshot because he pulled down these tweets and I couldn't find an archive. This is a blue check mark. I believe he's a gaming journalist, and he says this: if you had the chance to kill Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, the two oldest right-wing Supreme Court judges, should you do it while Biden can get his nominees in place to replace them confirmed? It's interesting as an abstract question, but becomes a real conundrum if, say, you're terminally ill and have little to lose yourself, but that it could save many women's lives in the future. This is an individual suggesting that people should kill 2 Supreme Court justices and saying that you should do it while Biden is still in power because he can appoint new justices if you kill them. And he's saying that, if you're a person who has nothing to lose, again, we're in a pandemic, maybe you have a virus or a sickness and you're terminally ill. He's saying if you're terminally ill and nothing to lose, why not do it essentially? Because that could save many women's lives in the future. You'll be saving lives by carrying out an assassination. That's what this individual is saying on Twitter. Folks, when Trump told people on January 6th to be peaceful and to go home, he had his tweets deleted and they're trying to accuse him of insurrection. Here's an individual calling for the murder of 2 Supreme Court justices, calling for actual assassination. I checked his account today. He is still on Twitter. They did not ban his account for this. Remember, you're dealing with the same types of individuals right now who are, trying to get people banned, saying advocacy of violence. We need to make sure there's no advocacy of violence, make sure there's no insurrectionists, make sure there's no extremism. If they don't deem things like this extreme, then what are they talking about, right? What are they talking about if this is not extremism? Let me show you this. Now, this individual actually did delete the tweets, but didn't back off of this. And this is him again the other day, but again, it's still up right now. I'll show you his Twitter right now. He's saying this is his Twitter right now live. You're looking at it. It's not deleted. He's not blocked, nothing. He says, I removed my recent 2 tweets about the U.S. Supreme Court as on reflection, they're obviously pretty irresponsible. Yeah, calling for the murder of 2 Supreme Court justices. It's a little irresponsible, I'd say. He says, though I don't think they will be against Twitter's terms of service. So he doesn't believe that calling for the assassination of 2 top-level officials in the United States violates the terms of services at Twitter. So, folks, I guess take that as a note. Apparently, calling for assassinations of high-level officials is not in violation of Twitter services. At least, if you're on this side of the protected political class and not the side that gets prosecuted for everything. And he says, FYI, I don't endorse murdering anyone, but don't think there's anything wrong with thought experiments. So it's a social experiment, right? It's a social experiment. Now, on that note, people are actually preparing for violence. He's saying it's an experiment, but guess what? Some people, for them, maybe they're experimenting with violence. It says this is Daily Mail. Huge fence is put up at the Supreme Court, and justices cancel events as left-wing groups call for protests at their homes, and law enforcement braces for violence and over the Roe v. Wade leak. So amid violence. Now, let me put this in perspective. If on January 6th, they had to put up a fence, they claim they're all under threat. If on January 6th, an individual comes out and calls for the assassination of 2, let's say, congressmen, or even a Supreme Court justice at that time, what do you think would happen? I can almost guarantee you, because we saw it happen on much lesser cases, that individual would have like pre-dawn raids at their home. The FBI would take them in shackles and they drag them off to the, DC gulag, where they go under, essentially protective custody or, solitary confinement for over a year, violating even the constitutional rights. We saw that happen to the other side. You're not seeing that in this case. They can do anything they want and they're not facing any kind of punishment for it. It says this. Tall fencing started going up around the Supreme Court in northeast Washington, D.C. on Wednesday evening as tensions rose between protesters following the leak of a draft opinion that signaled, again, remember, Politico leaked it, someone leaked it to Politico, signaling an impending overturn of Roe v. Wade. Workers erected the massive fencing around the perimeter of the Marble Building just east of the U.S. Capitol building as justices began canceling public appearances amid warnings protests could get increasingly violent. Anticipations of violence, actual calls for assassinations, everything, all there. And frankly, nobody's going to jail for it, it seems. They're not even getting their Twitter accounts deleted for it or getting censored for it. Left-wing groups are planning to send activists and protesters to the homes of conservative justices as well. This is, again, this organization. It says our 6-3 extremist Supreme Court routinely issues rulings that hurt women, racial minorities, LGBTQ+, and immigrant rights, the group's website states. And it says we must rise up to force accountability using a diversity of tactics. Now, what are these diversity of tactics? Do they include death threats? Well, they do include going to the homes of these justices, the ones that an individual just called to have assassinated and has not yet had his account deleted for doing so. They're going to the homes of the justices. They're protesting at their homes. They're going to the Supreme Court to the extent they have to put these fences up. I mean, imagine if the narrative were flipped. Imagine if this was the other side. You'd be seeing narratives all over the media of an insurrection, of threats against our, what do they call it? A political proceeding. One of the basic foundations of our system, one of our branches of government. Remember, in the United States, we have three branches of government, right? The legislative branch is the legal system, and so, of course, the judges right here being the head of the legislative branch, or sorry, the legal branch, legislative being Congress, I'm sorry. And then, of course, the office of the president being the third. One of the three branches of government right now, one of the official, systems for legal proceedings and one of the ways that political proceedings take place in this country is under threat. Individuals calling for assassinations, individuals calling for protests at their homes amidst this, calls for violence, threats of violence, use of violence in some cases. Remember, with January 6th, folks, there were people who were prosecuted and sent to prison for, interrupting or, disrupting an official proceeding. This is an official proceeding. And remember as well that the justices should not be able to change their opinions based on protests. The job of the Supreme Court is to judge whether things violate or don't violate the Constitution. Their basis of judgment should be the Constitution, not public pressure. And so here you have them trying to, through the use of protest and other means, trying to force them to change their judgment on the Constitution, using again threats of violence, which by definition would be terrorism. The definition of terrorism being, the threat or use of violence for political goals.